Courtney Friel, welcome to Breaking Through, the Alina Bovian podcast. It feels so weird saying that because I've known you for 10 years before all this. You're my first friend at KTLA.
I like to say I recruited you.
You did kind of recruit me.
You were already coming there, but I was willing to put in a good word for you.
I know.
I knew you were a star.
Aw. You know, I was in San Diego. I was on my couch. I remember that night, and I'm checking my Twitter, and I have a message from you, and it says, "Are you the new hire?" And we just started talking and became friends. But you were the first person to reach out to me and my first friend at KTLA.
Oh, and I'm so proud of you that you have your own show now.
Thank you.
And we get to see a different side of you than the news reporter.
Yeah. I think there are a lot of different sides to us that people don't see because of, so many years in TV. And I think in a way you fall into that identity and it almost becomes bigger than you in a sense. And it's funny, when you walked in the door this morning, you said, I was listening to some of your older episodes and it's a different side of you. And then you said something that I thought was really interesting, that you're really working on your identity outside of KTLA, outside of being an anchor. Where did that come from?
That came from just having too much of an attachment and expectations, I think, on my status there. Mm-hmm. And with goals that I've wanted that maybe haven't happened over the past few years. I mean, things that I did to myself. I mean, I worked weekends for 20 years basically and wanted to be able to see my kids and my new husband. And so I'm really grateful that I took myself off the show. But in doing that, I had to go in a freelance capacity. But now I have more time to do other projects. And so I like to be busy. And I've got so many things going on in the recovery world. I've got 2 Airbnbs. I've started my own little online segment. I'm constantly evolving and then doing this quick and clean, which is like sober travel, which is airing on KTLA. But I want to travel the world and do that.
Right? You're evolving.
Yes.
And, for those of you who don't know, Courtney and I worked together at KTLA 10 years ago when I started as a reporter. Courtney was the weekend evening anchor and a reporter during the week. Catch us up with who you are now, what you're doing now, because you're no longer full-time at KTLA.
Right. I still fill in a lot. And the thing is, I'm kind of a workaholic. So I like to be working. I'm very happy when I'm working. And the more I have to do, the more I do. There's nothing worse than an idle day and feeling unproductive. And of course, I put that on myself. But I've had people say to me, like, wait, if you don't financially have to work, which I'm blessed that my husband could support us, why aren't you just drinking coffee and shopping and taking walks all day and doing lunches?
But that's
and
not
reading
you.
Books in a hammock somewhere.
Yeah.
Right.
Why don't you?
That's not me. I can do that for, once a week or something like that. But it's this own pressure that I put on myself.
But I think that's a good pressure. I'm the same way. I have to always stay busy. Ever since my divorce, I've added so much more to my plate work-wise. And I find it so fulfilling. But at the same time, it's a lot. And you almost think, why am I doing this to myself?
And we share the divorce angle. So when I don't have the kids and my husband is working all day and I'm home alone, that can be depressing.
Right.
So I have to stay busy. So this week, for example, I wasn't on the schedule at KTLA. Finally, my kids have been able to go back because my ex-husband was affected by the Palisades fire. So I had them all month January. So they finally, went back and I was like, okay, going up to the mountain house where I have my Airbnb, because that's another job in itself and a whole different story, just trying to maintain those.
Yeah. Well, I feel like you're so much more than, we are all so much more than the one thing that we do and that we're known for. And you represent so many different things, sobriety being a really big one. And I really want to dive into the sobriety angle because you've been so transparent and so vulnerable with your sobriety journey. And that's not something people in the media or people who are public figures really tend to do.
Although it is changing.
It is changing little by little.
I mean, in the 15 years that I have sober, so many more people have come out about
sobriety.
And yeah, I wrote my book 5 years ago now. My book came out and my goal was to do that at 10 years.
Right.
And it happened. And
breaking news and kicking booze.
Tonight at 10, kicking booze and breaking news.
There you go.
It was a
It's the
play on
opposite.
kicking ass and taking names.
Well, hey, this podcast, it's a play on the name Breaking News. So this is Breaking Through because
like
it's so
it.
much more personal and it's really just about getting to know us under all those layers. So walk us through the beginning of news because you've been in news a really, really long time. How'd you get started? Why did you want to work in TV?
Well, news was growing up watching Peter Jennings with my dad in Philadelphia and Action News, which is the powerhouse channel there. And really early on, as in third grade, wanting to get into news, and then just worked in the school TV studio and writing on the newspaper and doing internships and every opportunity I had to be in the TV world until I did it professionally. My first job was in 2003 in Jackson, Tennessee, which I didn't even know existed.
I don't think people realize that for news, you have to move away to a really tiny town.
Yes.
And that's how you get your start.
Well, that's more
people
the
always
old
assume we
school
started
way. I
in
mean,
KTLA,
we didn't
but
have
we
the
didn't.
internet back then.
No.
If I had had a YouTube reporting show back then, or
someone had to give you the opportunity.
remember,
back then.
I mean, nowadays people can report for online channels. Like that
On their
stuff
cell
didn't
phone.
exist.
No.
Right. And even though you do those things, if you don't know how to turn a package for the 5 o'clock news and be on news deadline and go live, you have to get that experience in a smaller market and make your mistakes there because the stakes are so much higher in a market like
you
Los
can't make a
Angeles.
mistake in LA.
But of course, the business is changing, and now we hire people from smaller markets that only have a year or so experience, and that's fine.
true. But when we were getting started, it was like you need 10 years of experience minimum. And even then, you have to embody a look, a vibe, something that fits in within that market, right?
For sure.
So when you first got started, what was the biggest challenge?
Doing it all at once, one-man banding. I sprained my back twice from carrying all
I
that
did the
heavy
same.
equipment.
Oh my
and
God.
then it would always turn out like I'd forget to level the tripod and the video would be like this or it'd be orange or blue. I mean, I remember doing one interview and I was laughing so hard because the guy looked like Dracula because it was so black and it looked like there was like candles behind him.
I was reading in your book, it says you were on a total mission to be a news anchor / party girl.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean,
Explain that.
That was because I developed a work hard, play hard mentality very early. So even though I drank all the time, I would first do my stories until 10 o'clock at night in the TV studio at school or on the actual news. And then I'd go out and
When did
party.
you first start drinking? At what age?
At 15. And I was very shy and I was very bullied. And so when I discovered alcohol, that numbed out the pain of not being liked. And it also brought me out of my shell and I became this fun party girl who suddenly had all these party friends that wanted to include me and hang out with me, which I didn't really have when I was being bullied because it felt like no one liked me and I didn't understand why.
What were they bullying you about?
I think it just irritated them that I wouldn't react. And now I know you have to confront your bullies to make them stop. So they just pressed a little harder. It was everything from like starting a pep rally in the gymnasium, starting a chant in the gymnasium. We hate Courtney Friel, or like just commenting on like, why is that guy talking to you, or your outfit? They were just mean, or we hate you.
Do you think it's just small town
or
mentality?
we want to fight you, or I was like, what, fight? Seriously?
Wow.
Like I was just sweet. I mean, obviously they were probably just jealous. I was doing stuff on the news in high school. I came out to Los Angeles for Student Produced Week at Channel 1 News. So my high school got to see me on the national level. Then I had done some commercials. And so I guess they were just jealous. I don't know. But again, like I should have just stood up for myself. But
yeah, but who has that consciousness at 15 or 16 years old? You find ways to cope.
Yeah. Well, I always tell my daughter, other people's problems with you are their problems, not your problems.
Exactly.
I wish someone would have told me that back then.
So your mom never noticed that you were partying a little too much back then?
Wait, my mom told me I must be doing something wrong that people don't like me. So that was definitely not helpful.
Where did that mentality come from?
I don't know. Hopefully she's not watching, but I think she was the mean girl. back in her high school days.
Oh, wow. So for you.
But I just never wanted, I mean, because I knew how it felt. Like I still to this day, if I see someone at a party who doesn't have anyone to talk to, I immediately go up and talk to them. I refuse to be mean to anyone. I mean, it's not my nature, but like a lot of people go on to then bully because they were bullied. And that's just
how long
ridiculous.
did the bullying last? And what did that do to your self-esteem?
It happened starting from 6 years old. I remember being on a play date with two other girls and they ganged up on me. And then I called my mom crying to come pick me up. And I went to church. My parents took me to Presbyterian church every single Sunday until I graduated high school. And in the youth group, even, those girls were mean to me. The high school girls were mean to me. And then when I went to my first year of college, it's interesting because it was a big like Greek school in North Carolina, which I didn't know. And so you couldn't rush the first semester. So I was being dirty rushed. And all these girls were nice to me for the first time ever and inviting me to 90210 night. And my friends were like, what's the big deal? And I was like, you don't understand. Like older people have never liked me. And then when I decided I wanted to move out to LA, so I wasn't going to rush the second semester, but literally like 98% of the population was in a sorority fraternity. And all those people that were nice to me, like, just became such jerks to me. And then it was bullied again. And even when I went to Fox News at 26, I was the youngest person to be on air there at the time. And even those women were not very nice to me. And I got bullied from them too.
Looking back now, do you think it was anything that you were putting out that was maybe attracting that type of behavior? I mean, you're such a sweet person. You're very friendly. So I guess
I was an easy target. Because again, like I wasn't doing anything back except internalizing it and then drinking to numb out from it. So I'm grateful. I'm grateful for all of the past because that definitely played a lot into becoming an alcoholic. Yes, I have the synapses in my brain or the disease that says you cannot just have one and then I want tons of drugs on top of it. So that's a part of it. But I mean, I think that those bullies prepared me for having a thicker skin in television too, because we always get people that send us very lovely comments about things. And you're like, but at least I know, like, I mean, I've done so much self-help work on myself since getting sober because when you're drinking and using, all you care about is yourself and that's all you're doing. So you have no time to be evolved or learn any other culture or anything else in the world.
It's amazing to me though, how your party girl career and your anchoring career, it almost has like this parallel.
It did. It did. But I became a better anchor and better at my job once I got sober.
Let's talk about how you got started in college, yet at the same time partying like crazy. You were getting straight A's, but doing cocaine.
Right. Yeah. Sadly,
and we can talk about that. So
sadly,
walk
that
us
was
through
my
that
only
whole
year of
trajectory.
straight A's in college was when I did cocaine every day.
When did you first get started in drugs? Because it started with alcohol in high school.
It started
you
with
were
alcohol,
numbing the pain.
and immediately, like I was very sloppy, like crying, puking, passing out, disappearing, drama. Loose lips sink ships. Like that's why when I got sober, it was so nice to like wake up and be like, oh, thank goodness I didn't do anything in a blackout last night.
But what did you think of
mad
yourself
at me
back then when you would when you would wake up in the morning from a blackout? You were pretty aware, I'm sure, that you're doing something that's hurting you. But what did you think of yourself? What was your self-image like back then?
At first, I thought it was like a rite of passage. I loved that people would call me the class drunk. Like, I thought that was so cool that I just loved to party. And it was really an identity for me. Like, vodka was my best friend in a way.
Because here you are growing up as this girl who's bullied and not liked. And then alcohol creates this opportunity for you to now be the popular girl.
And, well, yes, with the party people, of course. But it also made me hard. And moving out to LA, too, I was like, oh, everybody just cares about themselves. Like, that's why I liked it. Like, I don't have bullies out here because no one's worried about me.
Right. So what was it like for you coming from Pennsylvania doing the college, small town market like thing, and then coming to LA. What was that like?
Well, that's when the drug use started
In LA.
Right. So I did my first year at Elon in North Carolina, then moved out to LA with one of the girls that was also leaving that school.
Is this your friend Erica?
Yes. And we immediately got a job at a tanning salon where the boss, remember CDs, would leave us copious amounts of free cocaine. Like we didn't even have to hook up with him.
How old were you
He
at
just
this
wanted to
time?
party. I was 19.
Oh.
Alcoholics enjoy that a little too much and can't stop. Like a normal person with a healthy relationship with alcohol, if they want that buzz or whatnot, will just have one or two and then they'll be able to stop.
Right.
So when people are contemplating, am I an alcoholic? Should I stop? Then the advice is like, okay, just go out and have 2 drinks.
So you were an alcoholic and a drug addict.
Right. And
but a
that's when
functioning
things,
one.
well, that's when things really like got out of hand. So I always say I had a 15-year party career, but at the end, like I would line up my cocaine because I knew the second I would take a sip of alcohol, I would want that. So if I knew I was going to be drinking that night, which was every night, I would, in New York, that's where things really took another like dramatic level down.
When did you move to New York?
So I moved to New York in 2007 when I got the job at Fox News. And at the time, coming from LA, we didn't have Uber and Lyft. So to suddenly have taxi cabs being able to take us all around and not have to worry about drinking and driving, which I'll admit I had done previously and not proud of that. And thank God I didn't, kill anyone. But you're suddenly allowed to be out until 4 a.m. because the bars are open.
Right.
And then the drug dealers will just come and meet you wherever you are. Like it was just too easy. And a lot of people kind of move there and have their downfall. But it's also a great place to get sober as well. So my 5 years in New York, it was like 2.5 were partying, 2.5 were getting sober before moving back out to LA.
So what was it like working for Fox News in the early days while you were still partying?
Everybody there partied. We all went out all the time.
Like who?
That's what we did. I think in the news business in general, just like I'm sure many industries, we're dealing with such complicated and emotional subjects that you want to escape that, especially at the end of the day. And I think in sobriety and in news, that's been a challenge where I've had to come up with other tools to help me deal with those emotions because gosh, like we've had like big shootings out here in LA or just things where, and I'll cry, like the Uvalde shooting with the kids. Like I remember my assignment was cover all the victims and I did that with the Vegas shooting. And it's just like, it's so emotional to and you're like, oh my gosh, like I have to fit all these people, like their whole life into one sentence and stuff. And it's just, I just remember like so many tears have been cried over that. It's very, very emotional. But I'll just meditate, I'll journal. I have like 101 self-help Audible books. And those are the things that I dig into now and suck up. And I love to travel. So it's like I always have to, it's funny, I don't have a trip right now that's planned. Like I need an international trip. Like I have to get a ticket somewhere. Like that like calms my anxiety to know like, okay, I have something to look forward to.
But going back to those years, you said right in the middle of when you were at Fox News is when you were trying to get sober. So when did you realize something has to change?
Right. Well, one of the poignant or greatest hits, I can say, we went to a party in Long Island in the Hamptons and took the Ella DeBellar out there. And this was in the morning. So I'm like already pre-gaming, drinking on the train out, doing Coke all day with my vodka Red Bulls at the party. And then coming back at like 8 o'clock at night. And see, I also developed a big pill
Explain something
problem.
to me. When you're saying you're working as an anchor at Fox News and you have this drug and alcohol habit, what is a day in the life of Courtney Friel back then like when you're showing up to work and you have this thing you're keeping up?
Right. Well, so I was the weekend newsreader on Fox and Friends. So there were times where I'd still be drunk till like 2 a.m. and then say, oh, I'm going to sleep for 2 hours and then get up and I would be like slurring through
And no one
newscast.
noticed?
I'm sure the makeup people, I mean, I'm sure they smelled like crazy vodka on me. They had to have. I mean, there were times where I'm like, okay, I can't do this anymore. Like I just slurred through that cut in. This has got to stop. So I would set rules. But yeah, if I worked dayside reporting in-house, then people who were around, we'd all go next door to the bar.
So it was overlooked in a sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think especially there, like,
Does that speak to the culture at Fox News at the time, the early days?
But I think it's everywhere, because even in local news, I did that too. Because I think it is a rite of passage for a lot of people to have those experiences. But then when I was turning 30, it was like time to grow up. So to answer your initial question, a moment that I realized I was going to have to wrap things up was when I went out to that party. When I came back, I had also started taking a lot of pills. Ambien, Adderall, and Xanax were always in the mix. So I would take I was like, oh, take an Ambien on the train back, because I was going to go out to a club when I got back at like 8:00 at night. And I had my...
It's amazing how you would plan your partying.
Well, that's the thing. I was on so many uppers and downers. It was like, I'd have too much anxiety on Coke, so I need my Xanax to come down. But then I would need my Adderall to like get story ideas in the morning and wake up. And if I didn't have my cocaine, then I would snort my Adderall. And then I would always need Xanax,
like
because I'd have...
Now that, if looking back,
well, it was
20 and 19, from 19.
15 years. It was
30.
from 15 to 30. And that's why having 15 years of sobriety was like a big sober birthday for me, because now I have surpassed the drinking time.
So what was the...
Oh, but so on that train, I had my bra on my head and I was pretending I was a pageant winner. And I was in a blackout, and my friend was asking me questions on camera about me winning the pageant. And so she sent me that video 2 weeks later, like, ha, 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 did you know that we filmed this? And what I saw in that video was just appalling. I was horrified. And the look of disgust on all the faces of the people on the train looking at me. And I was like snorting and flopping around. And I had blueberry pie on my face that I had smashed into my face at the party. Like,
it's funny.
I was wasted. Like, I was like that drunk girl that maybe was funny and I was nice still, but I was just a hot mess. And
do you think you were seeing yourself truly for the first time? Because you're on television, but you're not seeing yourself. You're not seeing the Courtney behind the scenes.
Well, I was so shallow.
Ruining her life.
I always say, like, I would brag about how I like to float on the surface. Like, I don't want to get deep. I don't like feelings. It was just about numbing everything out. And so when I first got sober, all of a sudden I had all this time present with myself. And that's what I did not like, because I was super uncomfortable. It was Groundhog's Day. I did not know what to do to fill up the hours. The days felt like years. And so I always tell people in new sobriety, heads up, it's going to feel that way, because I spent so many hours of my life messed up that to have 24 hours a day with no chemicals in me, it was an adjustment.
When did you hit like true rock bottom?
Well, so after I saw that video, I was like, okay, I'm probably gonna have to wrap this up soon. And then 2 weeks later, we had 3 couples with us in Florida, and I took a bunch of pills and they couldn't wake me up. And my now ex-husband came up, and like I woke up with the worst hangover, of course, and was like, you need to go to rehab or we're getting a divorce. And I was basically like, F you. And he went downstairs and he got the other people. So there were 7 people surrounding my bed, impromptu intervention. But I always say, like, thank God I listened to what they had to say. I knew I deserved more for my life. I knew that if I did this, it would be the best decision that I would make. And I knew I had more to offer the world. And I just knew in that moment then, I was like, okay, I'm just trusting. And then I went to rehab. And then I, did 3 months of outpatient, and I went to marriage counseling, and I went to regular therapy, and I started.
What was it physically like to go to rehab? Did you feel the withdrawals? What was that like?
No, it wasn't that, but it was very, very vulnerable, and nobody wants to be there. But also,
what did you learn about yourself?
Like, nobody wants to get sober, and I did not really enjoy the first year at all.
What was the first year like?
Well, it was that whole Groundhog's Day and just kind of getting to know yourself without alcohol. I mean, I remember I got to have an overnight trip in rehab because my sister was getting married.
Mm-hmm.
Why are weddings and rehab like always a combination? And I didn't know how to dance sober.
Oh, wow.
And now I freaking love dancing. You know me.
I know.
I want to throw
have
a
a video of
party
you dancing
and
on my phone.
I have a DJ just so I can dance.
Is it awkward to be at a party now sober?
No, not. Oh my God, not now.
Someone
I have a blast. I love being sober.
No.
Right.
I mean, back then,
Oh,
you're
back
someone who
then.
suffered from like chronic shyness.
Yes.
So now are you thrust back into that little kid version of yourself where you have to learn to be social all over again?
I always say that alcohol made me the person that I am today, but just without the alcohol. Like I can still be that like outgoing, funny, like I don't give a F, whatever person as sober. But that took a minute.
What did it take to get there?
I think just becoming your new normal and realizing, oh, wait, there's like so many benefits to this. One, as I tell everyone, because of course we're all vain and thinking about ourselves when we're using, it's like the fountain of youth. First of all, like my friends who have continued partying on, they're like on their second faces already, or they look rough, right?
So now you're sober, you're married,
Yes.
you're living in New York. Are you still at Fox News?
Yes, I still was, and they were very cool about me going to rehab. Like I didn't even have to take disability. They, paid me or whatnot. I did kind of lose some of the airtime when I came back. I think that's because they wanted to like take it easy on me because I had been on like 6 shows a day, working 7 days a week. It was crazy. So then that was another layer in the first year is that like suddenly I wasn't working as much. And so I felt like I lost my whole identity because I lost my news anchor identity or was in limbo because alcoholics, uncertainty is like the worst emotion. Like it's like we're all or nothing people. Like a box of Wheat Thins or Skittles. Like I have to eat the whole bag. There's no like, serving size of 10 Skittles or 10 Wheat Thins. Nope. I have to eat it all until I feel sick. Okay. And like when I was single and dating, like in between for like 4 years between my first and second husband, like I would be like, what are we? Like not having to define it. I'd be like, okay, if I know I have a date with you on Friday, okay, I'm good. We don't, whatever. But if I don't know, then I'm like, So, and that's how I feel right now, like with the job situation, like maybe I'm either, I need to be all in or all out and I'm in this limbo position. So like, would I be in a better place if all of a sudden I was just like, no more news?
So alcohol for a long time quieted the noise in your mind. Or at least numbed it.
Yeah, but it made me so little. Like my world was so small. And when you hear all the stories of people using, it's like so boring. We all have the same stories. Like I don't feel that I started living until I got sober and was able to now go on and experience the world.
Do you think motherhood helped change that when you were trying to get sober? Because you started having kids around that time.
So I found out I was pregnant when I was 8 months sober. And then I was like suddenly pregnant again when Cash was like 5 months. So I had, these 2 young kids very early on in sobriety, but they're my blessings and they were my crutches because I remember I was so concerned. How was I going to get through like the first summer sober in New York? And I suddenly had an excuse. Oh, well, I'm pregnant. I can't drink. Because back then, like I used to care what other people thought about me not drinking. And guess what? Nobody cares what you're drinking except people who have problems with alcohol. Like, unfortunately, as a sober person, you do hold up a mirror that people will then see their problems in you. And like, there's nothing we can do about that. But yeah, I mean, that's a concern in new sobriety. People think they're never going to have fun again. People are like concerned what other people are going to think about them not drinking. And the more time you get, it's just like, I don't care. I mean, that's why I'm so open about talking about it. Because I'm like, hey, I really love this. This was the best decision I ever made in my entire life. And if you want to, I wrote the book because it's like I came out about it on my social media when I had 6 years sober, which I felt like that was enough time to be kind of credible on the issue. Because I think it's a disservice for people to talk about like, oh, I quit drinking or, oh, I'm sober. Like, in the first 30 days. It's like, because then you're going to have to like eat crow when you relapse.
Did you relapse at any point?
Only those times that I had stopped prior.
Initially. Okay.
Right. But I also like didn't have the support of like 12-step meetings. And that was not a part of, I wasn't in the sober community that first time that I did it. But rehab like set me up for success. And they really drilled in your head that nothing is going to get better by having a drink. It's not. You're still going to have to deal with the problem. You're going to make it worse. It's better to kind of like have the emotions on it and deal with it right then and there. And then you get through it quicker.
Right. So something else a big life change that you went through around that time, your marriage to Carter ended.
Yes.
Well, what was that
I
like?
think that's tough. Like when one person changes the dynamic of the relationship or one person gets sober and the other doesn't. But I, like you, have a very healthy co-parenting relationship. We have been divorced for 10 years now. But I always say the best decision I made was getting sober. The second best decision I made was getting divorced.
What was the cause
and now
of the
I have
divorce?
a great sober husband. And he's, I think like the purpose of my ex-husband and I getting together were to make Cash and Cam. They're amazing kids. And we like still all hang out as a family unit all the time.
You guys have the best co-parenting relationship. We're going to get into that in a minute.
We're both remarried, and we, I love his new wife,
Lauren, who we also work with at KTLA.
Yes, I mean, it's just, and then my husband Jim was so cool that he, was like, okay, like you still hang out with the ex, or he's in the family too. And
the early
we all wear Christmas pajamas together.
You guys are the cutest. We're going to get into that. So the early days of divorce, what was that like when now you're a single mom? What was your life like at that time? Were you back in LA yet?
Yes. So when I had Cameron, I came, basically Fox let me finish my 6th year of my contract out at the local Fox. So I worked at Fox 11 for a year.
Okay.
And then when that was up, I knew it was like, okay, we'll help you out and get back there. But then you're on your own.
But did you move to LA because Carter got a job here?
No, it was because they needed an entertainment reporter at the Fox affiliate, and they knew I wanted to do that because they knew like doing entertainment at Fox News was just not the place. So they were like, hey, we actually need someone out there. We kind of feel bad that you're like lost in the mix after the rehab thing and you bettered yourself and all that. So they're like, hey, why don't you just finish out the contract at Fox 11? I loved that job. It was great. But then I knew it was kind of up after that. And that's when I came to KTLA.
Got it. What was that like at KTLA?
I mean, I loved it. I still love it. I mean, I'm friends with everyone there. And I feel like I've heard it's like the best station to work at.
It is.
And people are cool. And it was a tough adjustment to like kind of get back into the grind of local news. And so for 10 years, I did report on all the horrible things. Ultimately, it was just that I worked like literally 20 years on weekends, and it was time for me to have a weekend off.
Right. So now at this time, you're back in LA, you're a single mom, you're dating.
Yes.
You're working at KTLA. I think this is around the time when we met because I know that you were kind of newly divorced.
Yes.
What was it like back then for you?
First of all, I'm definitely a relationship person, and I'm happier and I'm more productive.
I remember some of the funny dating stories you would tell me.
Oh my God, I had so many. Yeah, and then it was like,
what was it like for you dating in LA?
These crazy stories, and I had to finally be like, okay, I don't need any more crazy stories. And then once I made like a thing with the universe, I was like, oh, so I had this epiphany. I realized because I'm like an open book, so I would come in and entertain everyone with all these crazy dating stories, right? Because
I've heard some of them.
And I liked the like feedback. Like I liked making people laugh. And so then I realized, wait, I'm like seeking out these crazy stories so that I can perform and tell them. So then I was like, because I was meeting people, I was literally meeting them on planes, in parking lots,
us like
in the grocery store. I don't know.
Funny or crazy story.
That's so far back. It's just like, I think I led on like 56 dates or something before I met Jim. And
56 dates?
In 4 years.
Well, yeah, that's not that bad.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like I slept with all those people, but I mean, it was
like, tell me like one weird date or one like funny date.
Well, I think because I would background check people. So
Are you kidding?
yeah, you should definitely. No, you should definitely be
I am
doing
not using
that.
company resources.
But they should know that you're not going to go out with some psychopath. It's like
Right.
actually protecting you, I think.
Did you ever like go out with someone who had like a weird crush on you because you're Courtney Friel working at KTLA? Do you think that plays into any of it?
Maybe, but I also think a lot of people don't watch the news. It's like older people watch the news.
true.
It's more of our audience. So yeah, most people I dated like didn't care about that. I don't know. It's just like, yeah. So I found like people would lie and then I'd background check them and be like, you're still living with your wife, or like what about like that, breaking and entering charge? And then they get really mad at me because they'd be like, I can't believe you background checked me. And
Courtney, you're not supposed to do that. Oh my gosh.
Well,
Courtney.
do you know my own husband lied about his age? He said he was 3 years younger, and I showed up
Why
to our
men
first.
do that? I'm realizing
I showed up
now,
with our first.
I'm honest about
on our
my
first
age.
date.
I'm in my late 30s.
Right,
but now I'm noticing men are lying about their age.
Yeah, because I think
and it's so easy to Google someone.
right.
Where you're
Well,
like, why
I
are
think
you
for
lying?
the apps, because they want younger people. They like, I remember I went on a date. The guy's like, oh, just so you know, like I'm really 50, but I was in like 40s because I wanted to see, I wanted to see the younger girls who clearly
deceiving.
say that their selection, they don't want 50.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So what are you trying to do?
But I was happy that Jim was 3 years older, but I showed up on our first date and I was like, your background check says that you're really 46 and not 43. And he was like, oh, but my IMDb page says I'm 43. So like, Hollywood's a young town.
Oh my gosh.
But I was happier that he was older because, yeah, the younger guys didn't.
So
I like
Jim,
more mature.
So you worked on yourself a lot. And I was witness to this. I would come in on the weekend sometimes. I'd ask around, like, where's Courtney? She's in the green room. She's meditating. So when did you find that meditation worked for you as opposed to resorting to other things or, visualization, like all these things that you were into? How did you find that? And what was that
my
like?
divorce was very painful for me. And I cried for 2 years straight. Like I would be anchoring the news and I would feel the tears like welling up and I would be like holding them back. And then I would get in my car and drive home and sob the whole way because it was just... the death of a family unit, the death of a 12-year relationship. Did I make the right decision? All of those things. And so I was in so much pain from that I was willing to try anything. And I was in yoga class and this woman was like, hey, do you want to come to Unplugged Meditation with me? I have a free guest pass. And at the time I was like, I don't want to pay a babysitter so I can sit on the floor and just pay money. And like, I have ADD and, I'm not going to waste my time if I'm not burning calories.
Right.
But then, like I said, I was just like, sure, why not? And so I went and then I, signed up for there was like a 2-week trial, a free month trial or whatever. And so I went to like a couple classes a week and then I started noticing how my life was changing. And I, the good reporter I am, I started taking notes, a meditation file. And I was like, wow, this is happening and this is happening and this is happening. So then I started to do it on my own. And then in that first year, there were 3 different 2-week periods where I couldn't meditate because like I was moving or I was traveling or whatever was going on. And I felt all that anxiety and the old stuff creeping back in. So that's when I realized, oh my God, I need this. So this is my number one tool in sobriety that I
meditation
use. And then after, yeah. And then, I think that's why I say like my divorce was such a great decision because even though it was such like a contrast period, like it was such a vulnerable, like uncomfortable time for me, like that's when you can really do the work and grow. So I almost like want those times. Like I always, 2 people I know are going through breakups and I was like, you have such a great opportunity to look back one day
in that space now
and be like, I did so much work on myself or I loved that time period. And so then, I'm always, it's almost like a new high. Like what new thing can I try out I love like weird, whatever. Like
what did you
try
learn
it all.
about yourself going through that time, because it is a very special time. It's why I wake up really early in the morning now, because it's like time to myself. And I love that. And I've cultivated such a love for myself. I've cultivated like this practice with my meditation, and it's life-changing.
Yeah.
And I'm learning so much about myself and who I want to be and how I want to present myself in the world.
But it's an adjustment.
It's totally an adjustment.
And it's almost like getting sober,
consciously committed to it.
Because I went from relationship to a 12-year relationship. Like I was never on my own. So in those 4 years, I learned that I can be alone if I need to down the road. Like God forbid, like my husband dies or whatever, like I will be able to get through it. I definitely love being in a relationship more.
What's your advice though to women going through those early days of divorce? Travel.
That's where I started traveling the world and doing I was calling them quick and dirties because of having work and the kids, and like not having an ex-husband who was like, yeah, I'll take the kids for you to travel like all over the world, which I wouldn't expect that, but he's a reporter too. So it's kind of like, oh, if there's breaking news, you have to have a backup for me. And so it's like, well, if I have to have the backup, like, so I just would do these trips where I would spend one day traveling halfway around the world. I would spend 3 days on the ground, and then I'd come back on the 5th day. And they were my quick and dirties. But then that's how it turned into quick and cleans, because it's like, I'm not doing dirt, I'm not drinking or drugging. And it's all about like hitting the ground running and seeing all the things in 3 days, which is enough to see in a
totally
city.
Is. I do that now.
Yeah,
I do that now.
Fun.
It is fun. And it's great.
Yeah.
Because solo trips, you discover so much about yourself. I just went to the Middle East. I did a solo trip. And it's incredible.
See, I haven't done solo yet.
I'm doing it now. I mean, I'm meeting friends along the way. I'm not totally solo, but I think it's just such a special time, to be put in this environment where everything feels foreign. And you said for an alcoholic, uncertainty is the worst thing.
Yes.
So now you're thrust into this world of uncertainty, being a single mom in LA. What did you learn about yourself during that time? Like, what's the one thing you learned about Courtney?
Well, that's when I discovered meditation, which took me to a new level of consciousness. I remember like 2 months in, I just like burst out crying because I was like, I had entered this new like level in a video game, like it makes you almost psychic in a way. And like, I can sense energy. It's just like this other field of like,
it's so funny you say that. I was at dinner last night with some friends, and we were talking about the exact same thing, where I feel now through my meditation practice, I can call things into my life almost like instantly. It's crazy.
Well, yeah, you definitely.
I was telling someone recently that I saw his friend at dinner in my dream. And last night I saw his friend at dinner actually. And these people don't live close. So it's not likely that would happen. But what is it, do you think, about meditation that sort of elevates you in a way that you are able to attract things in almost like this unbelievable way, right? It sounds woo-woo, but there's an element of truth.
Well, that's why I liked going to Unplug, because they'd have like what would they call it? A spiritual talk in the beginning. And they would always kind of relate things like, okay, the universe isn't going to give you anything more if you can't handle what you already have. So be grateful for what you have and more will come. So it's more positive thinking, or like, you're a mountain and all of the bad things that could happen is just like weather patterns, but the sun will come out again. And so it really trains you to be more positive. And so with the whole manifesting of stuff, like
it's working on the vessel, right? You have to prime yourself to receive the blessings you want, but you have to get there.
But it helped me so much with worry. Like I rarely worry. But then on top of that, I was reading all these books. So like the Fourth Agreement, like that helps you not take things personally or come to make assumptions, and the Untethered Soul. It's like, okay, we're just like a little blip on the radar. Like if we die, like life's still going to go on, So I just
many
love
of these
all these self-help right now. Like the best one, Mel Robbins, Let Them. Like, that's
a really good one.
It's such a great book. And it just helps you, like, especially with all the craziness that's going on in the world, like at least you can like come to your mat, like your yoga mat or your meditation space. And that's just your time for you. And it calms calms you down. I mean, it's like natural Xanax, which I can't, that was one of my drugs of choice. So I'm not allowed to have Xanax anymore.
What do you think changed in you that you were able to attract Jim, who's now your husband?
Oh, I'll tell you exactly what changed. So I listened to the, what is that book called? The Power of Your Subconscious Mind.
Okay.
And I realized, and Tony Robbins talks about this too, but how if you're staying in the space of like, I'm like, oh, everything in my life is great except I don't have a man, or like, if I just have a relationship, I'll be great. So by staying in that space, the same with if you're like, oh, I'm so fat, I can't lose weight, or oh, I'm always poor. Like you're staying in that space. You're writing your story like that when you say that when you say those things. So I came up with a mantra. I am enjoying my free time until my soulmate appears. And I just started telling that to everyone. Like instead of going into the, because I'm such like, I have diarrhea of the mouth always. It's like I can't keep anything a secret. Like when it's
I would sit in the news van with a photographer and he'd be like, well, I worked with Courtney yesterday. And he'd share a story that you said. And it's something that I'm like, Courtney, what are you doing? Stop.
Well, I guess I don't really care. Like
I know the story of the white jeans, but we won't talk about it.
Oh, the white jeans. Right. Yes. No topic is off limits in the news van. We'll just say that. But I respect other people's stories.
Totally.
It's not like I'm revealing their things, but I'm an open book with me. And so when people would ask, I just was like, oh, I'm enjoying my free time until my soulmate appears. And I just kept saying that. And honestly, it was like 2 months later that I met Jim.
You know, it was a game changer for me too, that changing that mindset. Granted, I went through a whole year of really just wanting to focus on healing myself. So I wasn't looking for a relationship.
Yeah.
And
which
now
is what most people don't do. And I'm glad you are going through
right.
that.
I took that time for sure. I needed it. But right now I'm in a space where I'm saying, I'm good. I'm so good on my own. And that's literally what I say. I love my time with myself. And I genuinely mean it. I woke up this morning and I poured my coffee and I'm like, I love this. I get to have time to myself.
Yeah.
And I think when you approach anything with that sense of oneness, that my cup is already full, the world is already a different place. And you do attract things completely different.
Yeah. And a big thing for me is with journaling. So I've had situations change if I have like an issue with someone. And I'm actually in this women's $1 billion group right now where we study like a self-help person each month. So this month we're learning about the Ho'oponopono prayer.
Okay.
And it's just all these things are like kind of like clearing the energy. Like if you change your mindset on someone. So like in instances with people that like one of the producers at KTLA, who's not there anymore, was like giving me a really hard time. And I had a friend tell me like she switched everything around and was like, okay, every morning, like I'm sending this person light and love. Like she has great hair. She is a mom. She's obviously very good at her career. Like just focusing on those things, like putting a gold light around us. And then also kind of in tandem with making the like, I'm going to be nicer to this person. And I'm just not going to like react to their thing at all. Like, I'm just going to still be nice and whatever. And I've seen these situations change where all of a sudden, like that person like loves me so much. It says I'm like their favorite person at KTLA and like wants to help me out and posts about me and all this stuff. And I'm like, wow. Or like, I mean, it's almost like
without you actually doing it.
It's almost like voodoo or something. Like
in a positive way.
It's positive voodoo. Yeah, okay. It's like I'm sticking the pins. I'm taking the pins out,
right,
for people. And by taking the pins out of the voodoo doll, something changes where then the situation changes. Well, wait, so there's a saying when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
Absolutely. So how did you meet Jim around that time?
At a 12-step meeting. He's sober too.
He's sober also. And do you think that
the thing is like, I love that he was very evolved too. And he summoned me because he was doing the 40-day miracle, which is another thing I've done twice. I recommend it's, I think the book's called like the 40-day miracle, or Make Miracles in 40 Days by Melanie Beattie. And that is like, you go through, your day. And at the end of the day, you send an email to someone with the 10 things that you're grateful for. But you're also supposed to go back and dissect your life and be like, I'm grateful that that relationship didn't work out. I'm grateful that I didn't get that job. I'm grateful for this flaw. Like you're supposed to like turn all the negatives into gratitude.
Positives.
And then you go through the days and you're like, ooh, I'm going to put that on my list today. So you're like looking for the things to be grateful for. So it's like, I like to do it like every now and then. My husband and I were talking last night about, we're like, we should do that again. Cause like our therapist will happily accept the emails. So yeah, he summoned me into his life that way. And also like we meditate together. Like if we're driving, say like to Palm Springs, they'll be like, let's put on Gabby Bernstein or Brene Brown, or it just like he's into self-help, which is,
you guys are both very
so
committed
important.
to your growth. Yeah. I think that's
Maybe
really,
that's
really
because we're not wasting time drinking.
True. What does he love most about you?
He always says the kids.
Really?
He's like, I love that you're a mom.
So Jim doesn't have kids.
He doesn't have kids.
And was that an issue when you first met, that he doesn't have kids, you have
No,
kids?
I mean,
Did he ever see it as...
I think also like if you're out there and you are, you know, a single mom and you think like, no, who's going to love me with 2 kids? Like, don't even think that, because the right person will love you most for that. And
here's the thing. Children are not baggage. Someone can come into a relationship with emotional baggage, all these traumas. That's baggage. I mean, things to be worked on. Yeah. But children are not baggage. Children are a blessing. They're a joy. They're fun. They're positivity. And if someone doesn't appreciate and love that, then right? Like, because you were anchoring the weekend night show, which I was offered that job actually. Oh, yes. And I think, with kids your age, it's hard. Like when they're younger, it's fine. It wasn't the right fit for me because that was also around a time where I was going through my divorce. Oh, I didn't want to have a schedule like that would take me really away from my kids. Right. And so I made the decision not to take that job. So I totally understand why you made the decision after so many years to leave that job. What was that like for you, coming to that realization? Well, I knew it was going to be challenging in the sense that I'd have to go freelance. Like I had been hoping that I would. Because it's really hard to get off the train, because we know what it took to get here. It's really competitive to be in news. Well, it's really competitive to be in LA. Or retire for a job to be it's a very competitive business. Right. So it's hard to leave. Right. I've thought about it, if I want to do something else at some point, but it's hard to leave. Yeah. And so how did you
that's why
make
now
that decision?
I feel like I'm like, wait, I have the best situation, because I'm still, I still have my foot in the door, and like now I'm working on this and that. Right. Mm-hmm. And what worst case scenario, they're like, we never want to see you again. And then it's probably, then I'd be out of the limbo. So, okay, it's like in or out. What do you feel called to do now? But I still love TV, because I have in the, 2 years since I've been off that show, I have dabbled in other things. Like I got certified to teach yoga. I got certified to do Reiki. Like I was decorating Airbnbs because I had my own, and doing some interior designing type things. And just nothing really fulfills me the way TV does. And so I that's why, like, when I'm doing the travel segments, at least I can be like performing in that sense or whatnot. So you're creating these opportunities. Yeah. And then I also do TV and movie roles for like reporter anchor things. And so I'm like manifesting 3 roles in 2025. So one thing I love about you is that you've always been so honest in talking about your sobriety. Obviously, we just talked about it for the past hour. Looking forward, what do you want to do in that space? Or how do you think it's helped people? Because you've always said that, it takes a lot of bravery to say, okay, I'm going to talk about my sobriety. And you do it in such a humorous and fun way, and you make it relatable to people, especially coming from you. You're this poised news anchor. We're not supposed to talk about those things. Right. Yeah. Well, and I did have some people, mainly like older people, that were like, well, I don't think you should put that out there. And has it done me a disservice because I've done that? I don't know. I'm not thinking about it. I don't care. And I didn't write the book to get famous or make money. And I wrote it to help people. And so the fact that I have people messaging me, like actually tonight, I'm taking someone who I'm meeting her for the first time in person. I've met her online, and she always credits me for getting her sober. And she's coming up on 3 years, and I'm meeting her tonight. How long have you been sober now? Me? Yeah. Oh, well, 15 years. 15 years. And then 15 in a couple months. My sobriety date is 090909. So
090909.
I am not messing that up. I'm keeping that forever.
How is your life different now being sober versus when you were using?
I remember things and I have real connections with people, and I just am more one with the world and other people, and I get to experience culture when I travel. Like I can just
You're
sit
more present in life.
have coffee and just like watch the ambiance and be grateful for that, because I've done many trips where I've just been like wasted in a blackout the whole time. And then it's like, what was the point of that?
Right. What would you tell to someone who's thinking about getting sober? What's the hardest part?
Well, first I would say my favorite quote is about sobriety is, I wish I never got sober, said no one ever.
Sure.
And so, I would be like, hey, if you're going to do it, like it'll be the best decision that you'll ever make.
Do you find it difficult to hang out with people who are not who do drink? If you go to dinner with someone who drinks, is that weird for you or hard for you?
Well, it's interesting because most people don't drink the way that I did. But when I do stumble across someone who's like crazy, this happened recently. I was a friend of a friend that was at the dinner table, and Jim and I were like, it was like appalling, but we obviously have sympathy for them, and we're like, we'll save you a seat.
So now when you're looking at life with a whole new lens, what are the tell signs for you when someone is drinking, maybe to mask something versus just having fun?
I can just sense it. I think that goes back to the whole meditation thing. Like I can really sense when people are in pain. Like I'm empath by nature, I think too, but like it's just so I sense it. And I try to offer like kind words to the best of my ability. Or
what's the best way to approach someone who might be struggling with sobriety, so you don't push them away or make them defensive?
Give them my book. I give them my book.
Your book is pretty awesome. It's so
well, because it's very much like me just telling it like it is, and also in how I talk, because thankfully, like, I wrote it myself and I didn't have to have like editors get involved.
No, your book is like spending 2.5 hours with you. It's so good. For anyone who's curious to read it, I highly recommend it. It was like an honest look into your life, but it's funny and it's real.
It's interesting to people.
It's you. You keep it Freil.
Oh yeah. Well, and also like this girl that's going through a breakup, I gave her my book last night, and she's like, will it help me? I was like, well, that's the thing. Like there's so many stories of like how I did the self-help work and overcame it. So like you'll definitely get something from it. You don't even have to have alcohol issues at all to like it.
So when you meet people now who are going through the sobriety journey, you're very honest about it. I love everything is keep it Freil. Where did that come from? This idea of keeping it Freil? Because you do in every aspect. I know that you'll keep it real.
Well, yeah. I mean, it rhymes with real, Freil. That's where it came from. And I have my Freilings and Freil my vibe. And it's a really great last name to have to work with hashtags.
You have like this super positivity towards everything. What's your daily practice like to bring you to that space? Do you just wake up happy, or do you have to work on it?
No. So in that group that I was talking about, the $1 Billion Club, like we're learning tricks. Like you should like literally when you first like you don't want to get up. It's like, I love my pillow. I'm so blessed that I have this cozy bed to be in, and I'm gonna kick ass today. I'm gonna have a great day, and
finding all the little things to be grateful for.
How excited am I for my day today? And yeah, if I'm in a funk, I turn it around. And so we have these like not mantras, but like tricks or tools to where if you're like, I'm tired, you immediately be like, I'm not tired. You just say the opposite. Start just saying the opposite of how you feel. And the girl who's going through the breakup that I gave the book to, she's like, my life sucks right now. And I'm like, your life does not suck right now. Your house did not just burn down in the Palisades fire. Like you have you have a bed to sleep in. You have food to eat. Like you have all your arms and legs to do exercise and walk around. I mean, there's so many things to be grateful for. So I think that's just like, I'm just like constantly gratitude. I'm so grateful for everything everything all the time. Like I'm literally like thanking God all the time.
What are you most grateful for in your life?
Well, I mean, my kids, my relationship with Jim, my pets bring me so much joy. I didn't even like animals or kids before.
What's your favorite mantra?
My health, like I love that I can do Pilates because, like I said, it's my thing.
What's your favorite mantra?
My favorite mantra,
or some of your favorite mantras?
Oh, I know. I have so many. Well, I already told you the sober one. Well, bloom where you're planted. That's one from my mama, and it's like just do the best that you can with what situation you're in, because you're in that situation because that's what was supposed to happen. Right. And how do you know that's supposed to happen? Because it's happening.
Just take the first step forward and figure it out.
Just be, grateful. More will come. There's plenty of time is another one. Like there's no rush to do anything.
That's interesting.
It's all gonna unfold as it's predetermined, as it's supposed to.
You know what's funny is this very Zen vibe, but I feel people don't correlate that with people who work in news.
Probably not, 'cause we're like type A.
Right. Everyone thinks we're super duper type A. And I almost feel like we need to develop this sense of calm in order to be in a news environment, because it is so hectic and sometimes very negative. What do you think is the biggest misconception about us, people who work in TV?
Well, to your point, when Jim and I were first dating, he would watch me, like, I think it was the Thomas fire or the Woolsey fire. And it was this one day, and I went through this neighborhood, and every 20 minutes I was live with a different person coming home to their, ruins. And you have to have compassion for that. But he was like, I can really tell that you meditate. Like your whole vibe with how you handle that. Perceptions, I think that like we're going to be like sleuths and go through their phones and all those things. But it's funny, like my first date with Jim, he was like, I realized right away, I will never be able to lie to this woman. So yeah, it is intimidating, I think. Like, I think when I was single for those 4 years, like, you have a position of authority in the town, and you're smart, and you're on, quick and on it, and you're listening, and you're sort of interviewing them in a sense. Like,
I try really hard not to do that when I'm out with people, not interview them. And at the same time, I feel we're always looking at people very intently because we're trying to get an idea of what their story is, what their essence is, in order to be able to retell it. I find myself staring at people, and I'm not trying to stare at them in an awkward way. It's just part of our job, right?
We're curious. We're curious.
This is who we are.
People have said, "Oh, you're nosy," but it's like, actually, I'm not being nosy. I mean, sometimes I'm being nosy, but I'm genuinely curious about you.
Right.
Like, if I have to sit and talk with you for an hour, like, tell me something about you. Maybe I'll learn something. I'm like open-minded, and in dating, that's a tip to people. Like, you never know, like, what you're gonna learn. Like, if say you show up for a dinner and you're immediately not attracted to the person, or it's not a good flow, then just be like, okay, what do you do for a living? Like, I remember I went on a date with like this scientist, and he like did all these things with lab rats, and like he was trying to like, cure cancer or whatever. It's just like, that's fascinating to me. Like, and I went out on a date with an FBI agent. So I was interviewing everyone, because I just like, tell me what I can know. Like,
did you get asked out a lot while you were out reporting?
Well, one time, Bomb Boy was a bust. I was covering something in downtown LA, and suddenly this bomb threat happened, and this commercial crew was filming it, and the guy got the video. And so I had to go like negotiate for the video, and he was like, I'll give it to you if you go on a date with me. And so it's like,
did you?
Okay, yeah. I dated Bomb Boy, and then Bomb Boy was a bust.
Bomb Boy was a bust.
But yeah, so I was, and I never finished that thought about how when I was telling all these crazy stories, and then I made a deal with the universe, like, okay, I don't want crazy anymore. I did not date anyone for 6 months. I didn't meet anyone.
What was that like?
Well, that was really like a healing, kind of like you said you did for you. Didn't you take like 6 months off of not going out and stuff like that, and really just focusing?
Just sat with myself.
sat in your shit.
Sat in my shit, as they say it, because you have to let it all come up.
Well, and that was the problem.
Time.
So I had this rebound with an Italian guy for like 4.5 months, right? Like 6 weeks out of my divorce. And so everything was like, I completely masked all the feelings of the divorce. And they always say the first breakup post-divorce is the worst because
why is that? Why do you think
I think it's because I didn't.
I've heard similar stories from other friends who are divorced. They say the rebound to the first breakup, it does something to you. Why?
Well, it's because you didn't process your divorce. If you hop into something so quickly, you're like then feeling all the highs of and like the good feels of the new relationship. And when that suddenly crashes and burns, you're like
you
sad that ended. And they're like, oh, wait, I forgot. So that's when the sadness really started for me with the divorce. Because for 4 months, I was just in like la la land.
Oh, yeah. I'm going from one relationship to another relationship. Look at my happy ending.
Right. So you got to learn to take time to love yourself, be okay with yourself, but it's uncomfortable. It's vulnerable.
And it's really hard when you have kids. I remember you posted something on social media once. You had the flu and Cash and Cam were in bed with you and you're like, thank God for iPads. I'm just going to let it happen because at this moment I have no choice.
Yeah.
And that's the reality of being a single mom who works, who gets sick. What are you going to do?
Right. And then, but I also feel like when I don't have them, there's like the guilt of that too. And that's I'm 10 years out from my divorce and I still feel that. So that doesn't really go.
I struggle with that now. So, and I'm glad you're saying that it's just totally normal. I feel very guilty when I'm not with my kids. I miss them all the time. And I think, is this what being a mother is? How is this normal? How do you get over that guilt?
The thing is, your kids still like you.
Well, because your kids are teenagers. It's a different dynamic.
Mine are 13 and 14. And like, they literally, all they want to do, like, they don't care about me at all. It's like, they want money, food, or a ride somewhere. That's all I'm good for.
How did you get over the early days, though, when you were missing them and they were still younger?
Well, so we had a schedule where like I would give them back on Saturdays and then go to work. And that drive into work, that Saturdays were always the hardest because that's when I'd be like choking through the tears and stuff.
Right.
Because then it's like, oh, I have to be alone again. But at least I had work, like, thank God. But I mean, I heard your podcast. Oh, when you were talking about how you would cry, do live shot, cry, do live shot. Yeah. Like, I remember
that's happened more than once.
I remember I was reporting at some murder and the family like gave me the finger and I was just like, oh my God. And I like went into like a Jack in the Box or something in between live shots. And I read that Katy Perry, like to not lose her fake eyelashes during her divorce, she would cry over the toilet so that the tears would just come directly down and not ruin the makeup.
Oh my God.
I would be doing that. That's in the book if you get to the divorce chapter. And then I'd come back out and do the live shot.
I don't think people realize how much effort goes into keeping your cool sometimes because we're all human and we're going through something. We all have personal lives. I remember a day where I had a really tough day, with my ex-husband and we were arguing about something and I have to go live right now. How do I bottle these emotions up, right? This is something I'm not used to that I'm going through. And now I have to like swallow it and go talk about something and be professional. And I don't think anyone saw it. So
that's when we activate our robot sides.
Yeah, exactly.
Sides to us.
How do you said robot, and I think that's so interesting. How do you not become a robot in this business? Because we do have to have that tough shell, right? In a sense, when you're going into a situation that's traumatic, school shootings, fires, people are losing their homes. Like we see a lot, we see everything. And, it's a very uncomfortable place to be sometimes. How do you not become a robot? How do you still keep your compassion with everything that we see?
Well, I think that's why people relate to me because they have seen me get upset on the news or they can tell just in the tone and just like facial expressions and things like that. I used to joke with our old boss that
Jason Ball.
Oh my God, here's another great story. Like, it would be so uncomfortable. Like, imagine if you're like constipated on the toilet and you're like, ugh. Okay. Like,
I'm imagining it.
It's like an uncomfortable feeling, right? Yeah. Well, I was like, Jason, it's like when I'm out reporting, like, it's like I have a poop face on, because I'm like, like, I'm so uncomfortable telling this horrible news to you. I'm like, you'll see me out there. It's like, she got a poop face on.
She's got a poop face on. For me, it's just a serious face. But, and I think that's part of the misconception. A lot of times when I meet people, they say, oh, you're so funny and you're so light. And,
Or it's
you're
such a
so friendly.
glamorous job.
Oh my gosh.
Like,
It
if
is
they
not
only
glamorous. Okay, how would you describe what we do to someone who has no idea?
Well, I'm the owner of 2 female urinals because you need a place to go when you're out reporting, especially during
What is a female
COVID.
urinal, Courtney?
Well, during COVID, when we had to report, there were no bathrooms open anywhere. So what were you going to do? It's daylight. I couldn't just pop a squat behind a tree, which you can do if you're a night-side reporter.
That's true.
Except then you realize, oh, that security camera just caught me peeing. So I tried out 2 different female urinals.
And how'd it work
They
out?
don't work very well. I was showing Lauren them the other day. I whipped them out of the closet. One you like put in and it gives you like a penis.
Courtney?
I'm going to take pictures of them.
I'm okay. I don't want to see it. I'm okay.
Although one photog had like Rodney, he had a trash can in the back and he had like a portable toilet seat. So if worst came to worst,
so one of the things we deal with
people
is
don't
finding
realize.
a clean restroom.
Right.
Early in the morning, late at night.
And so
because
now
we're always out in the elements.
When I see a porta potty, people are like, oh God, it's a porta potty. And I'm like, oh my God, there's a porta potty. This is amazing.
I won't go into porta potty. I'll hold it until I get like an infection, but I won't go to a porta potty. I just will not. I can't. Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about, you say a body scan. For a long time, you struggled with migraines.
Oh yeah.
Chronic migraines.
I still have that.
Did that have to do with your drug use?
No, because I had it for 3 years when I was 20, 21, and 22. And then I moved out of California and they went away. So I actually think it's possibly a pollution thing. So in 5 years, I am going to, when my kids graduate,
what was the worst
I'm going to move out.
Time dealing with your migraines? You took some time off work. I mean,
oh yeah, I took
what was
time
a
off
day
work.
in the life of someone who's dealing with that kind of chronic pain?
Chronic pain is the worst, but 1 in 6 people are going through it. I think that like sometimes when you're even spending too much time focusing on trying to heal it and I was trying like all these new medicines and that was triggering it even more. And then I was spending so much money and that was, making me frustrated because I wasn't getting the results. Like at one point, I mean, that's kind of where I am now. It's like, I've literally tried everything under the sun in Eastern and Western medicine. Like I've gone to like a voodoo lady where she was like, you have 2 past lives and you were hit in the head in one. And like, just like,
oh my gosh.
I mean, she like blew cigar smoke all over me. Like I've tried, havening and Reiki and everything crazy. Like I've started somatic tracking and all the.
So what does work?
Nothing. So I just live life with a headache. But I will say that like not reporting and putting myself in such a stressful environment has helped. But I get flare-ups. I mean, that's the thing with chronic pain. Like I'll be in a 2-week flare-up where the pain is just really intent.
What does it feel like when you have a migraine that bad? Are you able to do anything?
It's like, so it happens at work. I don't know if it's like being under the lights, but every now and then I'll go to Anchor and like literally my face, I feel like I'm stroking out and I can't see. I am slurring, and then one time
I've watched you have a migraine on TV.
We had to have the paramedics come because I had to leave during the commercial because I thought I was having like a stroke and a heart attack because
I think I've texted you before, Court. I could tell you have a headache today. Because you can just see it in your eyes.
My eyes get really heavy when it's really bad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean it's no fun, but like
how do you deal with it then?
I mean, I've thought about like killing myself, but then I'm like, no, I can't do that because I have 2 kids and people who need me and love me. And then that's when I listen to my K-Love Christian radio and I hear something that's like, no, stay alive. I don't know. I just have to have hope that maybe one day I won't have a headache.
What do you do to manage it? Or keep it at bay?
I mean,
to
nothing.
Soothe the symptoms?
Really, it's 7.5 years of a constant headache. And somehow I managed to be positive through it.
How do you manage to be
positive? I have
positive?
headache hats.
Where does that come from?
They're like ice hats and I have every kind of contraption that there is. I actually kind of stopped talking about it because then everyone wants to give me suggestions or text me things and I have to be like, I really appreciate this, but like if it actually like frustrates me even more to like give me suggestions.
Yeah.
But yeah, I help. I know when people are like, I have a really bad headache, what do I do? I'm like, let me open up my bag of tricks for you. Didn't work for me, but maybe it will for you.
Court, you're so honest and you keep it so real. I love you. Thank you for being my KTLA friend, and thank you for being my
we should hang out
KTLA
more.
friend. I know you're amazing and you're such an inspiration.
Well, thanks for doing
so
this
much
podcast.
for coming on.
I love it.
Thank you.
Hopefully I didn't say anything too inappropriate.
We'll hear from HR if you did. I love you.
Love you.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Breaking Through with Alina Obervian. For our community to grow, please like and share, and also leave a review on this episode. Of course, you can find me on social media and let me know what you'd like to talk about in future episodes. Nothing is off limits, so let's have some fun.